to the life they saved. Real talk, real vets, every tale's got pride. From the battlefield's edge to the home front side. Tune in, turn it up, hear the heroes speak. The Vet Files bring the truth every week. From the fight to the mic, it's a soldier's life. You're live with the Vet Files, real stories, real life. Vet Files. Real stories, real life.
All right, welcome back to the Vet Files, a podcast where we share some of the experiences and escapades that happen in the military and after the military. Such a big part of our lives. And again, we're blessed to have Mr. Ken Freeney join us again. And today we're going to be talking about, we're going to start off with service dogs, working dogs, maybe in the military, and service dogs afterwards, and some of the effect that they have on your life and how these animals are really beneficial to service members during and after service. So welcome, Ken.
How you doing, Matt?
Oh, doing outstanding, brother. So I know that you have a service dog. I've seen pictures of it. A beautiful German Shepherd. Tell us a little bit about.
Well, she's about 100 pounds, so she's like a tank, but about as passive as a dog as you'd want. She alerts to stress issues, hostile environments, more or less. She has a tendency to run kind of a protection ring around the handlers. So she will keep people at the 21 foot, 22 foot distance. People can't just walk up, get in the middle of it. And, I guess it's part of what we should be talking about too, is what distinguishes a service dog, military working dog, things like that. She was a,
go ahead and,
what's that?
Go ahead and tell us, can you tell us about the role of a service dog? Yeah. You have working dogs and then you have service dogs, but they're all kind of lumped together sometimes as a service dog.
Well, when you take military working dog, you can set that to the side. Okay. That's just what it is. Military working dog, but it falls into all the other categories. So when you take service dog, it could be a number of things too. It could be a medical service dog. It could be a canine police dog. Generally, under the ADA, a service dog has a performed task that it does. 1+. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4 tasks. So if you say it's a medical service dog, it could be trained to go get your medication. It could be trained to pull a bell. It could be trained to go get another family member. One of the things I taught my dog to do is when I got disoriented, she will lead me back to the house, and I can go to the back of the property blindfolded, and she will walk me all the way back up here. Now, I may trip a couple of times, but
right.
She taught her that. So under the ADA, that defines a service dog, and a medical service dog kind of falls into that. If you talk about a working service dog, say a drug dog or a bomb dog, canine, police dogs, military working dogs, that's another form. But then you have the ESA, which is the emotional support animals, or ESD, emotional support dogs. They are not service dogs. They are basically a dog that you could have to make you feel better, numerous things. And there is a guideline for that, but it's a very lenient guideline. So, and when you start talking about aggression dogs, like military working dog, you start to get into all this, plus a lot more, because a military working dog could be a drug sniffing dog. It could be a medical dog. It could be a cadaver dog searching, same as a civilian dog. But on the military side, the training's a little different, I guess, because it's more structured. You're putting them with people in and out of facilities. So when we talk about service dog, ESA, military working dog, or even police canine dog, that description gets really broad.
Right.
If that makes sense.
It does. I know we've all watched the cop shows or even seen, I guess to bring it home for civilians, the patrol cars have the K9 on the side, and they have the K9. And then you see them in the airports going around sniffing and stuff like that. So what is the selection like for an animal? How are they selected and how are they trained? How does that happen?
Well, if you're talking service dog medical under the ADA, there's basically two ways you can buy the dog. I should say 3 ways. 1, you can buy the dog could be granted to you, or 3, you can train your dog. They allow that. If it's a working dog, say canine, military working dog, or even if you got into like conservation officers with their dogs, their Labradors, they generally have vendors, if you will, trainers that they go to. And those people are paid to vet down thousands of dogs to get to that core group. And depending on,
what are they looking for in a dog?
well, basically, let's just say you're looking for an aggression dog. You're going to start looking at their aggression attributes. You're going to look at how well they attack the ball as a puppy, biting, tugging, the normal stuff, because a dog likes to bark. Is a dog too timid? I mean, there's some real basic stuff you're looking at, the same as you'd be looking at a soldier. If you're looking for that dog that's going to be drug sniffing, you're looking for those attributes that lead to kind of that mentality. Just to give you an idea, let's just take a service dog that walks around civilian public wise. That dog is not supposed to sniff other dogs. It's not supposed to show aggression to other dogs. It is not supposed to show aggression to other people. If a flashbang goes off or somebody runs a car into another vehicle and you have a loud noise, they're not supposed to react to it. They're not supposed to cower. Obviously, they're not supposed to bite if they're a medical dog. So when they're doing the selection process, they're looking for the attributes that makes that the most effective training.
Okay.
And what's going to pay
their
off?
Demeanor and how they react to certain situations. So I know it's probably best practice to start out with a puppy, a young pup. But can an older dog be trained, or how does that work? Or do they even consider those?
They can, but the problem is you have to look at life expectancy on the animal and how much payout and reward you're going to get to the environment. Medical, like retrieving and stuff, it could be done. If you're talking about an aggression dog, there'd be a lot of loss, because at to get to a certain age, the training would work really good, but the dog's at the end of its lifespan. Right. Not lifespan, but working span. Let's say it that way. So they're looking long term.
Okay. I mean, maybe a dog no older than a year or so, something like that, or
on the average. And I'll clarify this, because you probably get some people later on. Oh, that's crazy, but generally a dog is still considered a puppy at 2 years old, depending on the breed.
Okay.
Some of them mature a lot sooner.
Right.
But
sort of like people, right?
Yeah, they're like people. Exactly. I mean, I've got 5 dogs here on this property right now, and the mentality and aggression levels and everything is different for each one of them.
Right.
And, you're talking about a VA dog, let's just say service dog for medical, you're looking at a $30,000 dog by the time you pay the trainer and everything else.
Yeah, all that. So how did you first learn about service dogs in general, and what made you decide to go through the process of getting one for yourself?
Well, I learned about them at a young age. I won't say service dogs, because there's a history. I'm a big history buff, especially when it comes to military. Love it. And, Vietnam, a lot of our generation, the books you read was World War I, World War II, Civil War, things like that. Dogs pop up every now and then. And, Vietnam had some real interesting stories about military working dogs that saved their handlers. And I'll just throw one out here real quick, because what made it interesting for me was during Vietnam, the handler got shot. They were walking a point guard, if you will. And when he got shot, everybody dove in their foxholes. And this is a statement from a interview that happened years later with one of the libraries. This guy said, bro goes down, blah, 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 blah. We hit the foxhole, start returning fire. He said this dog jumps out, runs out of the hole under fire, grabs his handler, and starts dragging him back. The dog gets shot. And, it gets him close enough, they can get out of the foxhole, grab the guy, and pull him back. And he said, I didn't think about it then, but years later, I'm in there and I'm thinking, that's our brother. And none of us went after him, but the damn dog went after him.
Right.
And that kind of intrigued me, because you start as a young teenager, you start to think, well, hey, I got dogs, but my dog wouldn't pull me out of a foxhole.
Right.
And
So I know it's a sad movie, but it's sort of like Old Yeller.
yeah,
You know, I mean, that dog, he was there for that owner. He did whatever. I know the ending is bad. I don't even want to,
yeah,
it's sort of like Bambi, you know, kind of thing. But I mean, that's a good example to think about is Old Yeller. He was there. He could warn, and he protected, you know, and I guess that's why the old saying and old adage is a dog is your best friend, man's best friend.
yeah.
Whenever they bond, you bond, right?
Yes, that's it. And as I matured through life and had dogs involved in and out of my life, one of the things that led me to the point I'm at with my dog now is the loyalty and the fact that there's times I needed help that there was nobody around. You know, it's I can be sitting there in the chair and fall asleep and get awkward or something, and she'll come over and grab my hand and flip it up over my head so hard
Right.
that it wakes me up. You know, it's like, hey,
Right.
what's going on here this morning? Or
Right.
just the simple fact of if you went to emotions, they sense a bad day, good day. They're there when nobody else is. And my wife will be first to tell you, I want a dog replacing me. But
Yeah.
she told me that she noticed that dogs made my life better.
Right. Well, I think it's
like,
even scientifically proven that, you know, just having an animal and petting that animal can lower your blood pressure, whether it be a cat, a dog, whatever it is. But just being around them can change your metabolic rates in your body, not only physically, but also mentally.
oh yeah. I mean, and it, you know, and that's what led to it to me, you know, history wise. Now, being in the military and we talk about military working dogs and service dogs, a lot of what people see on TV now didn't even start happening until the 2000s. I mean, what they're seeing now with the fur missile and all this high fancy stuff. I mean, history has always had some form of service dog. But where I think it becomes a connection for military members and maybe even police officer, I can't speak for them. You get to working with these dogs and you see them do things that humans won't even think about doing for somebody else. But you see comical stuff too. And you see life in an animal that I guess you just don't pay attention to. They're not perfect. They make mistakes. I've seen dogs.
That's making me think of that movie. I think it was Tom Hanks in there. Was it Hutch or something like that? That had
Hooch, yes.
Hooch or something.
Yeah.
It was comical, but he had the dog was comical, but he had that same personality of I can be ferocious. I'm going to protect my human. And his personality really came out on that. And I think you're right about, you know, just animals in general. For a lot of people to realize they do have their own personalities. I think it's like humans. We all have basic traits that we can kind of count on.
Oh yeah.
But, you know, but we all have our little quirks. Some have a sense of humor, some do not, some, you know, and those service dogs are like that too. And it's awesome to see, especially the military working dogs. And then we'll hit back on the service portion of this in just a minute, but how they are, you know, I've seen funerals for these things, full military honors. I mean, they have rank. They, you know, they are an official member of the military.
Yeah. But part of the problem with that is what most people don't know. The dog, most animals are just considered equipment. The military classifies them as equipment, not as a living being. And, you know, I'm going to plug a couple of places here because I know that they'll like it. But if you take Team Dog, Mike Ritland, the ex-Navy SEAL that does the dog training and rehab, if it wasn't for people like them, a lot of these dogs would be put to sleep.
Yeah. I think afterwards the military looks at them. If a campaign is over with, whatever it is, or the dog's getting to the point where he's aged out of service, let's say, they see them that they cannot transition back into a civilian life or, you know, be retrained. So it's better to euthanize them than to go on. So, I mean, it's really sad to do that. But that's the reality of it.
And what's weird about it is, you know, it kind of, the movie Dog had Channing Tatum in it. It's kind of a comedy and everything, but I took something away from that movie that we're talking about right now is, talking about the dog's service life is done. Here's a guy, his service life was done and nobody wanted to deal with him. There's always this little bit of an issue for veterans when they get back into civilian life. There's not really a lot of utilization for them, or nobody wants to utilize them because they don't want to take the time to say, hey, welcome into this life. It's mostly, you just got to adjust and get on with it. Well, a lot of these dogs, let's just take a manhunter that was trained to run in and drag people out of buildings. That dog's got aggression issues. That dog's got some PTSD issues. You can't just put him with the kindergarten school.
Right. Come the petting zoo kind of thing.
Yeah.
But isn't it awesome, though? You mentioned that movie. His service life was over. The dog's service life was over. They had bonded together, but they kind of came back together. But could you imagine that in human form as far as, wouldn't it be kind of awesome with your battle buddy that you spent a year or something in the trenches with, this, that, and the other? You guys both made it. Your tour's over, your service is over, and you get to come home and just hang out together and stuff. And that bond's there too.
Yeah.
So that's what that reminds me of is.
Exactly. And I think it's anything. I even if you spend a lot of time with a coffee cup, we all have our favorite coffee cup that we get every morning.
Right.
You bond with stuff.
Right.
But when that object, if you will, that person, that animal interacts with you and brings something to the table, you can't help but have a special place for it.
Right. It becomes part of your routine. It becomes ingrained in you.
Yeah.
What do they say? It takes 3 days to develop a habit and 30 or 3 months to break a habit.
If you can break it in 3 months.
Yeah, right. So let's go back to service dogs. So how has your service? By the way, what's her name?
Bella.
Bella. Oh, I had a dog named Bella too. That's awesome. So how's Bella changed your daily life?
Well, one, she has her needs. So first thing I got to do is get up and take care of her needs,
Right.
and I mean, that's part of focusing on getting away from things that drive you crazy. I have a lot of injuries. My body hurts. I get up and just kind of lay the format here. When I get up, I'm in a lot of pain in the morning, and the doctors will tell you, motion is the lotion. Get the muscles moving.
Right.
Well, if you don't have, and not just Bella, I got cows and stuff, but I have to get up and get to moving, take my medication, things like that. She has kind of been that pulling force there in the mornings to get me started. And when I'm out doing things and I'm not as alert as I used to be, she had just give an example here. The other day I had a cow come up behind me and get up too close, probably, horns and things like that. And I heard God awfulest noise, turned around, and she had caught this thing by the tail and lit into their ass and was running them across the field. So her protectives. Oh, it was hilarious. I wish I caught that one on video.
Chasing a cow, even if you're chasing it yourself, and them cows, they go crazy.
And she brings a lot to the table, and she's very protective of me. And I've been getting gas and kind of got sidetracked doing stuff with the truck and heard her barking and caught somebody.
You mean gasoline, right?
Yeah, gasoline.
Not the other kind of gas.
Yeah, and caught her running people away from the truck.
Okay,
getting too close to the passenger side, windows are down, and she lays back there in the back seat. And it's things like that. She brings a demeanor, not counting all the physical stuff, helping me get up off the ground. I called her when I'm down by the creek coming up. I'm bad about not taking my inhaler and stuff. If she's with me, I've taught her to pull. I'll give her the command pull, and she'll pull and basically help me get up the hill. So I don't take her everywhere.
Right.
Clarify that. I think some of the people take service dogs too many places. And it's, people sitting down to eat don't want dog hair in their food.
Right.
But
you try to be a little bit considerate about you going into a packed restaurant and then you got a 100-pound dog and Just even not even the hair thing. People freak out because they feel threatened by an animal in general. And you know how it is these days. Everybody's threatened over, gnats buzzing around your head.
Oh yeah, we've had that conversation before. I mean, Lowe's, places like that. I went somewhere
There's always
about a
a
month.
Karen. There's always
A Karen psycho nutcase. But this lady's dog was just barking up a storm. I mean, she's carrying this little whatever it is, belly sitting there, just like, yeah, what? So,
Right.
She just looks at me and goes, German Shepherds are so aggressive. I was like, I didn't say bitch, which I wanted to,
Right.
but I was like, the only thing barking is your stupid little Shih Tzu. That little thing's the only thing, but that's the only aggression here.
Right. My dog's just sitting over here chill, man, like he'd been hanging out with Snoop Dogg.
Yeah. I mean, she literally was looking at the thing like she was stoned, like,
yeah.
And she does not interact. And that's a part of the thing that's changed my life too, though. And it's also a drawback. One, if I'm going to take her in public, I'm constantly keeping her clean, doing the grooming.
Right.
So I have a lot of interaction with my dog during the day.
Mm-hmm.
But when you go into public, it kind of attracts attention if you're not as careful.
Right.
Kids, can I pet the doggy? Ooh.
Right.
They're still a dog. They're still an animal. And she does not like people rushing up on her.
Right.
Military working dog, same thing. People see a military working dog. Well, that dog's probably trained to bite. You don't know if he's drug searching. You don't know if he's been chasing Taliban.
Right.
Right.
It reminds me of when Trump was in and they killed one of the Taliban leaders or something, and he comes out and says, "We sent the dogs in. We killed him like a dirty dog. That beautiful dog."
You see, and there you go. They always relate dog face, military to dogs. So I guess it just kind of works out.
Well, I mean, you hear all these sayings like, "I'm going to hunt you like a dog. I'm going to, I'm going to treat you like a dog. I'm going to do this with a dog," and so it's so ingrained in us, and it goes back to what you were talking about earlier. Is the traits that they share with humans and stuff is like, a lot of the traits. You kind of see where I'm going with that. Is like our sayings are things that humans would do too, because you're referring to, if I say I'm going to hunt you down like a dog, means that I, as a human, am going to portray myself as a dog and do what a dog would do and sniff and hunt and do this. So it's kind of, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Mirrored.
It's parallel. It's intersecting. It's I remember this guy drew a dog one time. And he went and drew the dog. The dog had a rank. And this, my buddy looks over at him and says, "Hey, am I mistaken, or does that dog outrank you?" He's like, "Shut up." And, he's like, "Private, I think that dog carries more rank than you." And he says, "I wonder who's a better tracker." And this guy was a tracker. And he said, "What's that supposed to mean? Who's a better tracker? I'm the one holding the leash." He said, "Yeah, but the dog's leading you. So who's the smarter of the two, Private?" He had this poor Private pissed off, and just giving him crap.
Right.
But that's the same thing if you would have put two GIs together, a corporal and a private, or a senior airman and an airman and a couple of sergeants, that camaraderie, it just added one more fun tool to the job.
Another guy to the gang, right?
Yeah.
Just hang out. Yeah, eventually.
As we talk about this, there's some really good books. Luca, The Team Dog by Mike Ritland. There's a lot of books out there that's been written recently. It's got a lot of history about these dogs and what amazing things they did. There's one particular story about some of the Belgians running down a Taliban after they cleared a house. And the soldiers are trying to run down the hill, and this dude's done made it to his motorcycle, as the story goes, and the Belgian runs him down. When the humans came, dirt rolls him. And I mean, let's face it, the Belgian Malinois, however you want to pronounce it, Malinois, Malinois, whatever, psycho nutcases, wonderful dogs. But if you give them a job, oh my gosh, that's the best soldier you'd ever want. Whatever you task them with, they do it 150, 2,000%.
And they don't question. They don't say, "No, Sarge, why are we doing this, Sarge?"
Exactly.
Come on, man.
And
You don't have to say, "Shut up, Private. Just follow orders."
but if you would think about the damage one IED would do, or a bomb, or anything that is unknown, the number of things these dogs have found, and then they've been able to disable it. And in some cases, the dogs have found it and set it off, and it's maybe killed one or two. And I'm not toning down nothing.
There's probably untold countless lives that's been saved by these dogs, even people that didn't even realize it. So you think about it, if you're in Iraq and you're in a convoy, right? You come upon a trash pile, whatever, you send that working dog out, they find it, you bring EOD in, whatever, do what you got to do. You clear that route where your convoy goes through. But now that route is known and clear. And so other convoys coming through that maybe didn't even realize that dog had cleared that route, that they may have been affected.
Well, and here's a good one for you. There was a county that had a Rhodesian Ridgeback, and I believe they're known for taking down hogs, wild hogs. Anyway, one night a deputy and a city policeman get called to this trailer park. There's a domestic dispute or whatever. Well, the deputy, being a gung-ho little crapshoot, decides to run in and tackle the guy, forcing the city police officer to have to run in and tackle the guy. So one of them gets stabbed, the other one gets cut. They get him out,
right,
lock the guy up. Well, this dude walked up and they said, "Hey, why didn't you send Robbie in? Why didn't you send the damn dog in?" And there's one guy, let the dog do the work.
Right.
And they said, "Well, was worried about Robbie." They said, "Hell, Robbie's bit his own handler 3 times." And so the next time they had an incident in that area, my understanding from one of the state troopers is they brought 2 dogs to serve a warrant on a drug house. When they pulled up, somebody opened the front door and released 2 pit bulls. They said this Rhodesian Roadback run into that first pit bull so damn hard, it sounded like a watermelon pop.
Wow.
And I don't want to be morbid here, but he grabbed the second one and made 2 big swings and broke his neck. And I'm talking about the normal pit bull, the red tips, and the other pit bulls run. And they said the other K9 bypassed the fight and tackled the dude going out the back door. And
so they were working in tandem with each other. They were
exactly. These were well-trained dogs. And when Robbie passed away at the funeral, people are wanting to know it's the police having the funeral. And I went just because a friend of mine was the handler. And the guy doing the eulogy, he said, "Well, it's one of those deals. Everybody knows Robbie." And Robbie got up one morning and looked in the mirror and scared himself to death. But Robbie couldn't function in civilian life. I mean, he was an aggressive dog. And like I said, bit his handler like 3 or 4 times before it was over with. But he did his job, and, they knew how to handle him, and they worked him. I mean.
Well, and I'm going to jump back to human and give you a parallel example. Let's take a professional athlete, football player, NFL football player, very successful. Let's say they did a 10-year run in NFL, whatever. They retire, whatever, injured, or they just retire. And they're very successful in that career. And then afterwards, their life just collapsed because that's all they know. They're laser focused on that. And their whole life was built around that. And so that's what reminds me of that dog that you were talking about. That dog had one purpose in life, and that was it.
And I think that's where a lot of GIs think they're at, and they're not. Because I think there's one purpose. You get out, you don't function in civilian life. And even if you do, years later, you're thinking, what's going on? But think about that soldier you're talking about, that athlete, and what people overlook. Somebody trained that animal, trained that athlete, just like a private. You go down there and you say, "Man, that soldier squared away, blah, 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 blah. He is the guy. We're going to send him in the house. We're going to have him fix the truck. We're going to have him climb up and change the light bulbs because that's the guy we want." Well, somebody taught them. Now they've got
Mm-hmm.
their own attributes,
Right.
but somebody sat back and looked at Matt Cochran, looked at Sammy Martinez or who it is, and says, I want them to take the next step. I want them to learn this.
So I watched a good movie that brings home that point, what you just said. It's called All American. It's about, it's a University of Texas college football player back in the late 60s or whatever, a very famous one. It's on Netflix, by the way. Anyway, they go and interview the coach. He's retired, old man, head coach who had recruited this guy. And they're like, who's this one player or whatever he's talking about? He says, well, he talks about coaching in general. He says, as a coach at my level, I'm just fortunate to get these guys that have already been trained from the very beginning, from youth league, JV football, high school football. And so a lot of the stuff is already instilled in them by the time they get to me, and their talent has been developed to a certain point.
Exactly. And, behind the scenes, these dogs that we're talking about, they have to have somebody that knew their shit.
Mm-hmm.
They had to have a handler that knew what he was doing. And they're not going into this blind, because if one side of the team is blind, you're only going to play as good as your weakest link.
Right.
Military is no different. You send a platoon in to clear a house and you got a weak link that can't cover his ass in his zone, then guess what?
Right.
That's as good as you're going to be. The dog's the same way. The door breachers, getting the dog in. It reminds me of a funny story here. We were out goofing off one day in a overland. It's kind of, you see them on TV all the time in the African movies and stuff like that, over in the desert, things like that. Anything that has to do with Middle East, kind of like a little Jeep thing. These things are durable. Roll them over, flip them back up. They're great. We were surfing behind them in the sand, getting on boards and stuff.
Right. Sand surfing.
Yeah. Jumping out of the back of them, acting stupid. And, this guy's dog was with us. He was a security policeman from the Air Force, and he brought his dog out that day, which people go, oh, you can't do that. Well, what you can and can't do is a very fine line between what you're going to do. and where we were at, we weren't really checked a lot on normal rules. So he went and drew the dog out that day because he just, same thing in Desert Lord. But anyway, dog wound up being with us. We rolled this damn Jeep over. It's on its side. So we're all out there trying to upright it, rock it back, and get it up. Somebody looks over and says, look at the damn dog. And the dog is propped up on its paws like this, looking at us like we're the biggest bunch of damn idiots that he has ever seen. And if I'd had a picture for that, about what we're talking about now, he was a very well-trained dog. He took the crash very well. And on that same token, the point I'm making, one of these security policemen had a Labrador. He finally was on the tarmac at Kadena Air Base, and I remember the dude was sitting there, and the dog run up and grabbed his beret, because security policemen weren't berets at the time. And I remember, and I just happened to look over and see this, and this dude jumped up and said, that's it. That is fucking it, Sergeant. Goes over there, gets his beret. I'm turning this dog in. If I'm going to work with a fucking dog, you get me a damn dog that's got some sense. And it kind of goes back to, you have bad trainees, you have bad canines. That even though you
have 100% of everything all the time.
Yeah. And, you have disciplinary actions.
Right.
I actually saw a dog go to jail one time.
Doggy jail.
Well, the urban sites, which we were working at one, a lot of them are not owned by the military. They're owned by Congress. They're congressionally funded, if you will. So we were doing all these exercises. This particular one was very much lifelike. They had animals, goats, chickens, all kinds of stuff to introduce into the combat training scenarios to trip you up. Now, this dog was known to be all around. He would go to meetings. He was involved, had rank and everything else, and he had made sergeant. So, seen this dog stop a convoy one time because the commander didn't want the dog to get hurt.
Right.
And, this led to a training scenario. What you going to do in combat? You need to get the dog. You need to be moving. You need to get the dog out there. It's training, but you need to handle this situation a lot quicker than you're handling it. I mean, consider it a pregnant woman, whatever you want, get them out of the road. So the dog's a working part of this environment. So we get there for a briefing one day. Well, where's dog? We're asking. And the guy's like, he's in jail. Like, what? Yeah, he's been demoted. He's no longer a sergeant. He's
MPs or the SF or whatever. He's kind of got
he's
it.
been demoted
He's
to
not drunk.
corporal. And we're like, what happened? Well, they kept having these chickens and stuff missing, and they thought it was coyotes. And turned out they caught on one of the cameras it was the dog. So they locked him in the kennel for about a month and demoted him. And
Hey,
he
Carl,
never killed another chicken after that.
can we get him some help? He's got a bad chicken addiction.
Yeah.
Send him to rehab. Maybe get him on some, wean him off of that and give him some of those veggie chicken nuggets.
Yeah, give him some of those plant burgers and stuff. And,
so, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say was, last session we talked about smoking and joking and downtime. Things aren't perfect. Exercises go bad, but it's those little moments in life that brings all that to some normalcy for people.
Yeah.
And you can sit back and laugh, regroup, and go forward.
No, I totally agree. It's the little things, and it's the little things that you always remember, So, getting back to service animals on the civilian side, and would you mind to share like a personal moment when Bella helped you through a really particularly difficult time?
There's been times, and one of them is my wife was gone. She had some family stuff, and she was running back and forth, and I was just kind of lost. I mean, you're here, you're there. You pick up the phone, you call somebody, they don't answer. I'll be the first to say, because this all ties together. There's a ton of people that will not return phone calls. Sometimes when you call, you're just looking to say, hey, what's up? Kind of recenter yourself. For me, that's happened a lot with her, more than just that incident. When my wife and them aren't here, she helps me recenter, gives me something to focus on, lets me know when people's out there. Mentally, she has probably kept me from going down a road you don't want to go down at times, as well as some people have. For me, she's been a calming effect when my aggression's been up, if you will. And in that particular incident, my wife was running back and forth to Texas to help her mom and some other stuff. And, she's what I had. She's my fallback. You go in there and climb in the bed. Your dog jumps up there, and it wasn't just her, my wife's dog too. They jumped up, lay on either side of me, and it kind of gives you some comfort. I mean, people, we're guides. Screw that. Yeah. There comes a point in your life where, you just need people around.
You guys try too.
Well, yeah, it's going to happen. Whether you cry because you smashed your thumb or broke your leg or you sucked it up or not, if you can't admit that, something like this helps, where she's helped me is times that I would be taking medications, I didn't. Or times I'd be going down that dark road, I didn't. And that's the same thing as my wife or my kids. And, when that one thing shows up at the right time, it is what it is.
Right.
So that was probably one of the civilian times that, she was there for me. And like I said, just kept me occupied, kept my mind flowing, kept me focused on something other than myself. Because you can get lost in it.
Oh, definitely. I've been there.
Yeah. And people don't realize that it's not that the animals are replacing somebody for good, but they are a replacement when you're not there,
Right.
And I've seen I've seen a lot with people, especially in the dog community, that fake having shit with the dogs while we're on this subject. And it gets a little annoying because people that really need to go get a service dog from the VA or Canine Heroes or one of these groups that are providing these animals, it's hard for them to get it.
Right.
And it's hard for people to understand what you're going through when you have a service dog, because they automatically think that service dog is this. They don't understand that if you go down, that dog actually has a task to go get somebody or prevent somebody from stealing your wallet.
Right.
I mean, there's times that paramedics, I believe in some of the cities, I do know certain cities, they train their paramedics what to do with service dogs because they knew they had people with medical issues, and that dog would not let anybody not in uniform near the body.
It's almost like everybody asks, you got a pair of jeans and you got your regular pockets, but you have that little small pocket up there. And everybody's like, what is this for? But that little pocket sits there and it serves a purpose, and it had a purpose, but you don't use it until you need to use it, which, it was originally made for pocket watches or whatever, but it's still there for you and it has a purpose, even though it's not active. It's there. You can see it. It's okay. Yeah. So my pocket analogy is stupid, but
it is.
Yeah. So since you mentioned the VA and stuff, so in your opinion, how does the military and VA support veterans who need service dogs, and are there any ways that they could improve, or what have you seen there?
I think one of the biggest improvements is, and it's not just them, it's also the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act. I'll clarify that because that really outlines what a service dog and ESA dog is, which allows the VA and everybody to say, okay, Matt, you need one, Ken needs one, blah, blah, blah. My doctor gave me prescription, if you will, and I'm not talking about one of these fly by night, pay $250. They've actually put me on a registry and said, hey, you really need to have this in your life. But to get one, you apply through the VA, and it's a pretty strenuous process, and it's geared more toward adaptive patients
with
that need that
physical injuries, basically.
Yes. And PTSD, things like that. And I'm saying that because you won't really go to the VA and get an ESA animal as much. It's a service dog, geared toward a function mentally, medically. Some of these dogs are being trained to sense diabetes, believe it or not.
Oh yeah, I've seen this, and cancers, and
the diabetes dogs are really cool to watch. When somebody's blood sugars, they know they're, but it takes a special dog. And in order to get one, you got to get through that process. The VA has improved, but they're spending $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 on these dogs.
Mm-hmm.
The improvement could be that they get some trainers on registry that can teach you to be a trainer. Okay. And the reason I say that is the law allows you to train your own service dog. Now, can you do that? Yes, if you know what your disability is and what you need and you're capable, that would reduce the cost of the animals. Mm-hmm. Okay. And also reduce the tail end cost when the animal is no longer functional. You can apply for grants, which I think it's Canine Heroes and a couple others out there. They're on the internet, and you can go to Better Business Bureau and all the accreditations, and they can tell you who does what. Mike Ritland with the Mike Ritland Company and Tricost that rehabs the dogs. There's possibilities to get things there and learn training. So the improvement for the VA and the organizations is accessibility that needs to happen for veterans and even civilians that need the animals, especially in the adaptive part where, somebody's got a leg or whatever, or they're,
So I know the VA is just, in a way, they're not as bad as, like, let's say the Army. The Army is really the only thing I know. But, if you're not bleeding, you're not hurt. There's no injury there, right?
Exactly.
And so how many, sometimes the VA, it's a crapshoot, right? Anything that you get, all of a sudden you think, hey, I need to have A taken care of. and you're thinking in your head, oh, this is going to take 6-8 months. Well, they take care of it in a week. And then you have something that's super simple and you're thinking, oh, this should be taken care of a week. And then it's 6 months and stuff. So did they put up any roadblocks? Did you try to go through the VA first to?
I did not. I'm not going to lie about it. The VA is and you almost got to lay the groundwork for the conversation, but the VA is a monster. And to basically explain it to those that's watching this, we didn't build an oil refinery in this country since 1976, but everything around us has grown. Usage of gas, everything. The VA is no different. Everything's grown and expanded, and the VA has been trying to keep up, and it's had bad management. It's had all the stuff that a business has. So if you take that in the context of, hey, I was one of the ones that got my benefits late. It took me years of fighting to get it. And when I got my benefits and they said, hey, we made a mistake, dude. You should have had this fixed years ago. I had already started dabbling into training service dogs and things like that and getting my ball rolling. So I have the option to go, I guess, apply for a refund or a claim or, try to get, but at the end of the day, it's not needed for me. Paperwork. Yes.
Again, the VA is a whole nother vet file, right? We could go down that rabbit hole, but just to kind of touch on what you're saying is that myself, I use the VA for my primary medical, just in general, right? Physician. But I also have a private doctor that I have as a PA also, because whenever I run into some roadblocks that I know is simple, not like I'm asking for some crazy medication or this, that, and the other, the VA may say, for instance, let's say weight loss medication.
Yeah.
They say, oh, before we can do that, you've got to come here and go through a 16-week weight loss class and take time out of your day, this, that, and the other. Versus going to your private physician and them just doing the blood work, doing the assessment and say, yes, you qualify, for this. If you have private insurance, of course, too, along with the VA. But what I'm saying is you have to have that private option also, because sometimes if you need something done that's legit, the VA, like I'm giving weight loss, for example, that's horrendous. You might as well forget about that. But go to your private physician and they're going to walk you through. They're going to make sure that you're qualified and stuff. But it's a lot easier. They're not going to make you sit or come to a facility for 16 weeks and sit through an hour and a half class for them to tell you to quit eating donuts.
Exactly. And so you could imagine if you walked in and said, look, I want a service dog. The scrutiny you're going to get on that is so tight. Now, and when we talk about this, you said Army earlier. If you take your top branches of the military, I guess we got 6 now if you count Space Force.
Oh, yeah.
We got Coast Guard, Navy, Army, Marine Corps, the whole 9 yards. That's a whole entity. They are not part of the VA at all.
Right.
So like you said, if you ain't bleeding, it don't count. And whatever goes in your record the day you leave goes to the VA and it's in the system. But if you also have medical care through the VA, like the clinic, those two factions don't communicate.
No. I can tell you that because I switched from the Murfreesboro VA to a clinic here. Those two, and I'm telling the doctor, here's what I was being treated for there. And I said, it should be all in my records. He goes, I can't see your record.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you talking about? You're the VA. You're one system. But no, it's over there, and they have their own silo, and we have our own little silo.
And so when we talk about service dogs and ESA, there's a certain point they're not even going to discuss it. It's just not even on the table. So I recommend that if a veteran needs one, especially in the adaptive, they utilize that system because they will get the response. Adaptive sports, canine care, and some people go, well, I've been trying to do it for years. That is true. It's not perfect.
Right.
You may have to look at other alternatives and file the paperwork for this bureaucratic system. The backup is if you need an animal or want an animal, there's a bunch of veteran-owned businesses that have cut through the red tape and said, look, we've got funding. We've got this. You apply. Now, I am going to say this because I get tired of hearing this out of people. things are tough and you fight to get things. But if you
Right.
don't apply, don't sit there and say they don't help me.
Right.
I just went through that conversation with somebody. I said, you ever send your application in? Well, no, because they won't have. Whoa, they're not required to talk. If you're not going to send this lady, and the lady that runs, I'm on to say it's Canine Heroes or Heroes for Canines.
Mhm.
If you send an application in, you will probably get a response pretty quick. Yes or no. And
It's like
that's
saying somebody being pissed off because they didn't win the lottery. Why do you want to? Well, I didn't want to buy a ticket.
well, then don't get mad at the lottery.
It's kind of that. If you don't fight, you can't win, right?
Yeah. And sometimes I'm so frustrated.
Right.
I just want to bang my head into the wall.
Right.
And, that's where, just like this morning, I got up, I was tired. We got in late last night and I walk out, I'm beating my dog. I'm getting the energy and she runs right up, sits on my feet, throws her head straight back, looks up at me. And it's like, damn, you just can't be in a bad mood.
You're sitting there thinking, oh, shit, I got to get on the air. We're going to do this. God, I don't feel like it.
And she's running around, stretching her legs, and she's super happy. Now, I'm one of these that nothing's ever easy. I got to take the hard way to do everything. My dog was almost killed during a tornado when it hit. Everybody was doing their thing, and she was on a dog run. And by the time I got to her, she was hanging up in a tree.
Was this in the 2020 tornadoes that came through?
Yeah, the one that come down I-40.
Yes, that was terrible.
It threw her up in the tree, and I thought she was dead. And when I run over there to grab her, she snarled. I mean, she like, boom, it's come at me. And I was like, oh, shit, it's me. She calmed down. I get her out of the tree.
Right.
Bitch took off and left me. She run to where the family was under the house. I'm out there in the storm.
Oh, my God.
She's done bailed. But when storms
Maybe
come up.
Maybe she needed to pray after something like that happened.
When she comes up to me now during storms, she comes looking for me. Hey, and she will shake. When thunder hits, you can look at her laying there and her back will shake.
Hey, that's the definition of a relationship, give and take, right? Both sides. Yeah. So but that's awesome that you can help her through some emotional support also. And I think that makes that bond even stronger between you guys.
Yeah. And so it's taking the place. And what I'm going to throw in real quick, I don't want to ever say take the place as in you're replacing a person. But recently, my grandkids have been living here for 3 years, moved to a house. They got them their house. They got moved in, all this stuff. And, everything was good and nothing was wrong. They was living with us. They fell on some hard times and boom, off they went. So she just took away my grandbabies, 3 of them in one shot. And one of them was, he was about 6 months old and I've had him, every day, every morning. And it's like, hey, come here for a ball. I need a hug.
Right.
I ain't got my grandbaby to hold. So, there's a lot that comes with it.
There is. So as we get ready to wrap things up, so what do you think people outside of the military should understand overall about the importance of service dogs in a veteran's life? ES dogs and what have you, but let's just say service dogs.
They need to understand that they're a working dog if they're a service dog. And they're there for a reason. And it's not just the service dog. It's everything that you do is 10 times that for a military or even a police officer or fireman, because the normal life that you have is doubled on that side of the fence. So, Matt, let's put it in real quick context. The average person may lose mom, dad, couple of grandparents. That's a normal lifespan, maybe some kids here and there. A veteran's liable to have seen 32 people get killed in 1 split second of an RPG round, combat oriented, things like that. That animal may be there for mental reasons. That animal may be there for physical reasons. That animal may be there for whatever. when civilians and military, I don't want to take away from anything, fake these ESA dogs, they make it hard for those people that's functioning in life to go into stores and things, because now all of a sudden nobody wants them in there because this Chihuahua just bit somebody because they called it a
They had enough
service dog.
to get it labeled as a service dog.
Yes.
Not going through the training.
And buying a $250, I won't mention no company names, but these companies that are selling these deals takes away from that. And you need to keep in mind that the people need it for a reason. And I'll caution military members too, don't abuse the system, because if you don't need to take the dog in there, don't. I love my dog and I have taken her places to eat, but she's had a bath and been cleaned up and she's not in there shaking and hair raining through the hair. I don't allow that. I take her to the outdoor seatings when I need to take her, like traveling
or something.
So it kind of goes both ways. I'd like to point that out and let people know that, and be careful who you go up to pet. I mean, for all you know, that guy standing there's a undercover cop doing drug duty, and that dog he's got's getting ready to tackle somebody. Do not run up.
After you just got a big blunt, you go up pet the dog.
And if you have one, you will learn real quick who's been trained in an organization and hasn't. Right. People will constantly go by me. Your dog's beautiful. May I pet her? Well, give me just a second and I'll give her the command to sit, get her where, just in case. And I've seen people reach their hand out and she's like, and she's like, no, you're not allowed.
Right.
And that's what people need to realize when they approach any dog or any animal. They are still an animal. They're there doing a job. So if you see veterans out there and, you see service dogs, take it.
Go back and approach them like you would do a human. I wouldn't come up to you and just start petting you on the head. Well,
it's funny because, we've been doing this third episode and I start remembering things I haven't thought about. I'm going to share a quick story about just what you said. My daughter was going to a church down the road here. And one day the preacher came by. I guess a preacher or whatever, the clergy, there were some people come in a car. The dude's like 6'4", maybe 320 pounds, and a big baby Huey. Nice guy. Well, he comes flying out of the car. Hey, I'm so-and-so, blah, 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 blah. And I was looking for Chloe. Well, they're inside. He goes, hi, throws his hand out. Boy, she jumped up off the porch, jumped between me and him, and sat down. And he goes, oh, a dog, reaches down to pet her, and she's like, arr, and he backs up. And I said, hey, dude, please do not do that. Don't come at me so quick like that. And he goes, oh, I'm sorry, just guess I'm a happy guy, not quoting me, but that's how he was acting. Real nice guy. And he reached out to shake my hand again, and she growled. I said, dude, you need to back up. I mean, I'm asking you, please back up. Freaking Twin Towers on cellulite here coming at me. And,
Cellulite.
And so we talked about 5 or 10 minutes, and he kept trying to reach for her, and she wouldn't bark, but she would just give a low, stay back. Well, he decides he's ready to go, and he goes, let's try this again, and throws his hand out, and she grabbed his hand. She did not bite him. She did not break skin. She didn't clamp. She just put her mouth on his hand, and he froze. When he went to pull back, she released it, and she stood up. And when she stood up, it forced him to step back because of the length of her body.
Wow.
And she walked forward and sat down.
Wow.
Now, could that have been one of those Belgium Malinois? The dude lost his arm. I mean, Bella's she's got some judgment skills in her.
Right.
But I have to caution people when you approach any animal like that. Now, when I got done and he left, I looked down at her. I said, we're going to burn in hell for that one. That was the preacher, But she was like...
Well, she may have had a good judge of character, too.
And
that's awesome.
They're trained to react and do things. And real quick, because I could go on this subject all day, dogs need remedial training, just like people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
people need to do remedial training with their animals, just like you would with a private, a law enforcement agent, or anything else, reoccurring training, if you will, to keep that standard and that level of performance where it needs to be.
Right.
And we have to do our own recentering. I don't sound like a douche, but recentering, for lack of a better word, when we're dealing with people and animals, I have to do it every day. Like I said, just the pain alone in my body causes me to be a butthead without anything else. So I have to constantly recenter, and that's
all.
When you're looking at us and dealing with us, kind of keep that in mind, you know?
Yeah, I think that's true with anything you do in life, whether it's just normal routines. If you don't do it for a while, then you try to go do it again. You're like, oh, I'm not as good as I used to be, because you're not practicing that art. So as we wrap things up, is there a good resource folks can go to that you can think of real quick? If they have questions or a Google search?
You can go to the VA. They've got plenty of information on there, and from there you can delve into other stuff. And then the ADA, the American Disabilities Act, they clearly outline what is and isn't. Then you have to go to your state, county, and city, because they all have different rules and regulations. So anything that we've, may or may talk about is a blanket comment, because everybody has their own set of governing.
Right.
So, and then you can go under the subcategories, which would be service dog and ESA or ESD that you're looking for. Okay. And those are your two biggest ones for veterans, the VA and the ADA, and for civilians, the ADA. And then you could go, and the places I would choose is I would contact the Team Dog, Team Pet with their training, Tricos, which is the Mike Ritland company, K9 for Heroes, organizations like that's got good high ratings. And then the AKC. The AKC generally will not steer you wrong. They consider themselves the creme of the crop, if you will, when it comes to dogs. Mm-hmm. Very, very bougie in their mentality of thinking, which is nothing wrong with that. I'm kind of picking on them. But they will give you straight up answers and information, and at least direct you where you need to go, and also give you some breeds that are probably going to suit your needs. Because it's, something we didn't talk about here. Belgians and German Shepherds and Rottweilers, certain dogs are picked because of their breeding and their attributes that they believe to the task. One of the best civilian service dogs is a standard poodle out there. And the Aussie Doodles and some of their sub-breeds that have hypoallergenic because of people with breathing problems and stuff. This is information that's out there. And if you want loyalty and actual task-oriented dogs, you kind of need to look at the breed of what they're going to do. What I was going to say was, if you think you're going to get you one of these Belgian Malinois and have this cute, cuddly puppy, it's just going to do everything, and it's just going to lay up in your lap and all, that dog needs some attention. That is a dog that will wear your patience. A German Shepherd will, but at a point, a German Shepherd gets lazy and mature. The standard poodles, some of the others are a little bit easier to train because of mentality. And this is stuff you got to look at when we talk about this. So those companies and that organization, AKC, will direct you kind of where you need to be looking.
Awesome. Well, Ken, thanks again for joining us on the Vet Files. And again, a wealth of information there. And if you have any questions or comments or anything, please put them in the comment sections. We'll reply to them, try to help you any way we can. Don't forget to like, subscribe, tell a friend, hit the alert, the little bell there, ding, 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 for alerts, notifications there. So every time we do a new show, you can be alerted there and you don't have to worry about it, right? So anyway, again, Ken, thank you very much.
Enjoyed it, Matt, like always.
Right. Thanks, man. Again, this is the Vet Files, and we hope we're helping you guys out. And if you have any questions or comments, please contact us again. Thanks, guys. Every tale's got pride, from the battlefield's edge to the home front side. Tune in, turn it up, hear the heroes speak. The Vet Files bring the truth every week. From the fight to the mic, it's a soldier's life. You're live with the Vet Files, real stories, real life. Vet Files.